Do that. And if you need one for your friends or relatives, we have enough. Take another one home with you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. So this is the last talk in the month of getting grounded. That's what we do in January. We just go back to principle, back to basics. And so today's talk is the power of thought. The power of thought. And here's what Ernest Holmes said about that. He said, we must say that all thought is creative, according to nature, impulse, emotion, and conviction behind the thought. Thought creates a mold in the subjective in which the idea is accepted and poured and sets power in motion according to that thought. Ignorance of this excuses no one from its effects, for we're dealing with a law. So Ernest Holmes had said this his whole entire ministerial career, that there is a power in the presence greater than we are in the universe. We can use it, but only as we align with it consciously and allow it to work through us. All thought is creative. That is the cornerstone of New Thought, isn't it? It is the cornerstone. Change your thinking, change your life. I mean, that was the slogan, forever and always. Right? And this idea of changing our thinking, changing our thoughts, changing our lives goes back to ancient principle. That's why they call it New Thought, ancient wisdom, right? I cannot pronounce his name. Epictetus, that's it. Epictetus said, in the first century, he said, the thing that upsets people is not so much what happens, but what they think happens. We think happens. The teaching called New Thought grew in the later years of the 19th century. A lot of it based on the writings of Emerson, right? Emerson's essays, his philosophy, transcendentalism made its way into New Thought. He's sometimes called the grandfather of New Thought. I love it. But there were many in those days, right? Along with Emerson, there was Emanuel Swedenborg, and there was Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, and Emma Curtis Hopkins, Emile Coué, right? Emile Coué, whose lovely affirmation in his 10 knotted bracelet that said, every day in every way I am better and better. Do that. Make yourself one. It's lovely, right? As a daily affirmation. There was Thomas Troward and others, Warren Felt Evans, Napoleon Hill, Wallace Wattles. I mean, there was just so many teachers and writers of this New Thought philosophy in our country in those early days. William James, of course, who was a psychologist, I guess, or he wrote books on psychology, he labeled New Thought the religion of healthy mindedness. Don't you love that? The religion of healthy mindedness. That's what we're here to do. Right? That's what we're here to do. And he said this. He said, the greatest discovery of my generation is that man can alter his life simply by altering his attitude of mind. That is the basis of New Thought. That is what we're here to practice, to learn, to do better and better, right? Every day in every way, better and better. Now science is jumping on the bandwagon. I love it. Right? By discovering neural pathways that can form and dissolve. You've heard about this, right? You know, neurons that fire together, wire together, right? That stuff. Okay, neuroscientists call this term neuroplasticity. It refers to the fact that our brains have the ability to change our synaptic wiring, reflecting our point of view. So it changes as we change what we believe. Change our thinking, change our life. We go back to that basic premise again. Change our thinking, change our life. And Ernest Holmes said this. He said, to learn how to think is to learn how to live. For our thoughts go into a medium that is infinite in its ability to do and to be. The human, by thinking, can bring into his experience whatsoever he desires if he thinks correctly and becomes a living embodiment of his thoughts. This is not done by holding thought, but by knowing truth. And now that seems like a little add-on, doesn't it, of the whole entire quote. But that little part, if he thinks correctly, is so very important. Because it's stating we must align with truth. We must align with principle, with spiritual truth. And we talked about this a little bit about this last week when we were discussing the beliefs that we operate from, right? And those held beliefs may be truth, or they may be false beliefs that we have taken on, masquerading as truth, right? And we operate as if they were truth, because in our mind they are. And then we begin to notice all around us evidence, right, that proves our point of view, that proves our belief. We have to prove our case. And sometimes we won't even see evidence to the contrary. Even if it's there, even if it's in our environment, we won't see it because it doesn't fit our narrative, right? It doesn't fit that underlying belief that we have. You know, say for example, we run into a dating dry spell, okay? Just, ask, get turned down. Ask, get turned down. Ask again, someone else, get turned down. Ask again, another no. Now, a person can extract from that small sampling, from that snapshot of his or her life, I can't get a date. Nobody wants to be with me. I'm unlovable. Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to be with me. I'm alone in the world. I'm unlovable, right? Now, he or she will begin to see evidence of that, outpicturing all over the place. It's a false belief, but he or she will still see evidence of that all around. More no's, more turn downs, more people saying they're busy doing other things, right? Rather than being with him or her. The evidence is proving the false belief that the person is holding. So you see what's happening here? The thought is creating the reality, yes? The thought is creating the outpicturing of what the person is then experiencing. That small random sampling, that small little dry spell, whatever it is, of rejections, is creating a law in that person's life, right? And then that limiting law, they are subject to it. They are subject to the law that they've created themselves out of that small sampling of rejections, and then they must exist under that limiting law until they get a new belief, until they change that underlying belief. It'll just keep outpicturing and outpicturing and outpicturing. And Ernest Holmes said this. He said, undoubtedly, each of us now is demonstrating his concept of life. But the trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. And the one who gives conscious power to his thought should be careful what he thinks. The more power one gives to his thought, the more completely he believes his thought has power, the more power it has. That's an incredible statement, right? That's faith. That's faith. That's an incredible statement, he says. The more we believe that our thought has power, the more power it has. It's an amazing concept. And it is because we live in an interactive universe, because Spirit is forever responding to us. We're not making things happen, we're making them welcome. We are allowing things to flow into our experience by our thought. A trained thought is more powerful than an untrained thought. So our practice then is to believe. Our practice then is to have faith in the face of all conditions to the contrary, right? In the face of all conditions to the contrary, no matter what it looks like in the condition, we know conditions change all the time. So to stand in the truth, to have faith and to stand in the truth in the face of all conditions to the contrary. Be off with you. You have no power here before someone drops a house on you, right? You just absolutely affirm the truth and don't give any power away to the conditions, or the conditions just stay there. So our practice then is to have faith in the face of conditions that may be to the contrary, and not only that, But the other part of the practice is to stop looking at conditions as if they were truth. They're not. This is happening right now. The only thing you can say about conditions are, well, that's interesting. That's about it. The only thing you can say about a condition, well, that's interesting. I don't remember manifesting that, but here it is, right? It's the only thing you can say about them, because you know what? In half a minute, they're gone anyway, and some new condition has taken its place. Conditions are not truth. Stop looking at them and changing your mind and fretting and changing what you do around the condition. The condition changes around your mind, not the other way around. Let's not get it backwards. All those people from Missouri, sorry, but they're wrong. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. No, you will see it when you believe it. They had it backwards all the time. We've had it backwards as a country all the time. You know, the show me state, sorry. Baloney. Anyway, Ernest Holmes said this, and I love this, and I want to just make a sign of this and put it up in my office. He says, it follows that if we believe it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. I love it. When we believe it cannot and it will not, then according to principle, it does not. So all your friends that you get to share this philosophy with, and they go, oh, I tried it, it doesn't work. You say, of course, it's worked perfectly. There you go. You didn't believe it worked, and it didn't work, so it's working perfectly. And I love that, right? It must not. It must not work for the person who believes it does not work, because it cannot violate its own nature. And its own nature is to respond to all alike. So if your basic premise is it does not work, it's not going to work. And that means it's working perfectly. It means it's working perfectly because it responds according to our most predominant thoughts, right? And if our beliefs are false, that outpictures until we go back to principle. And what is principle? What do we mean, really, even? When we're referring to principle, what are we even meaning? Well, God is all there is. Principle. God is all there is. God is love. Principle. Love points the way, right? That self-givingness of spirit to form. That's principle. Love points the way. Law makes the way possible. Principle. I'm stuck. Everything is interconnected in a divine wholeness of being. We are all interconnected. Everything in the universe is interconnected. Each of us are thinking centers in universal intelligence. There is a power greater than we are. We cannot even imagine. And yet, we are thinking centers in it. And we use it to the greatest ability that we have, to believe it, to embody it, to demonstrate it. And how much can we use? Ernest Holmes said, as much as we can believe and embody and demonstrate. So it is up to us to enlarge our consciousness of what's possible. The law responds to each in kind. To each in kind. It responds to us. The universe is forever responding. It's not happening to us. It is responding to us. We get what we put out. We get in what we put out. We are powerful, powerful manifestors of our good and our not so good, and our misfortune, and our downfall, and our bliss, according to our most predominant thoughts. So it is imperative that we spend time training our thoughts, isn't it? Know what we're thinking. Know what we're thinking. Training our thoughts, like Ernest Holmes said, trained thoughts are so much more powerful than untrained thoughts. Wasn't it Jacob Glass, who used to say, right, what if we had loudspeakers on our foreheads, and every thought that we had was broadcast out loud? You would train your thought really, really quickly, wouldn't you? If everybody heard every thought that went through your mind, oh my God, you would become an expert at training your thoughts. Of course we would. It is imperative we spend time with this training. We have to start there. We have to start with training what it is we're thinking, because, human race consciousness will do its thinking through us. And human race consciousness, the repository of all thought everywhere, for all time, La, 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 la. It'll do its thinking through us if we're not paying attention. And what does human race consciousness have in it? Everything. Everything, right? Yeah, it's cold and flu season. Better stock up on your NyQuil. It's this, it's that. It's, oh my God, it's, Chicken Little stuff. The sky is falling. Everything is in human race consciousness. And if we are not purposefully choosing our thoughts, human race consciousness is just choosing through us. And you know what? Sometimes it doesn't have our best interests at heart. Just doesn't. So it is imperative that we spend time thinking about what we're thinking about. Well, because here's the thing. We are the cause of our own effects. We are the cause of our own effects. Government's not doing it to us. Our mother-in-law isn't doing it to us. Our parents didn't do it to us. It's just that we are forever resonating in a cloud of our own thinking, right? If everything is energy, and everything is, right? We all went to high school physics. Everything is energy. Matter is energy. Everything is energy, and that energy is spirit. So we're just resonating in a cloud of our own making. What we're sending out, we're getting better back at us, right? We are forever immersed in that level, that energetic level of our own making. We are all sending and receiving centers of energy. Ernest Holmes said this, I love this. He said, "Did you ever stop to think you are a spiritual and mental broadcasting station?" You gotta love that. Messages are going out from you in all directions, which have an influence on your environment and the people around you. And since all energy returns to its source, everything moves in circles, the messages you broadcast come back to you. There's no place else for them to go. Send out good, get back good. Send out hate, get back hate. Send out loneliness, get back loneliness. Send out bliss, get out back bliss. We're like little crystal radio sets. Do you remember those when you were a kid? Did you ever build one? Okay, good. I'm the only nerd here in the room. Come on, there's got to be others. Thank you. Okay, those little crystal radio sets, right, that you built. Same thing, right? You get the antenna, and then all of a sudden, it's like you're starting to receive stuff. Yeah, because it's in the air all around you. Every radio station is already here. It's here. It's our choice what we tune into. When we practice mastery of our thoughts for definite and creative purposes, we are conscious of the thoughts we are transmitting and we receive in kind, right? That's what this life philosophy is about. We become conscious. We awaken to the thoughts that are running through our heads. And then we can purposefully choose them. And that's what the science of mind and spirit is about. Consciously choosing the law that will govern your life. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, "It's fascinating to think we are both mental broadcasting stations and receiving sets. And it will be even more wonderful when we learn to broadcast only the kind of messages we wish to have returned to us. This is the secret of life." This is the secret of life. So going back to our guy, the dateless one or woman, whoever it was, I don't know, who made the law of the few experiences that they had. They created a law for their lives, right? A limiting law, right? We work with this person. This person decides to finally go to a practitioner. Thank God, right? Finally go to a practitioner. And we work with the person, right? And we exchange the false belief for a spiritual truth. And what is the spiritual truth? I am loved, loving, and lovable. I am loved, say it with me. I am loved, loving, and lovable. That is the absolute spiritual truth of each one of us because we are an incarnation of spirit itself, right? Mr. Kirko says, okay, I am loved, loving, and lovable. One more time. I am loved, loving, and lovable. So what happens? What happens? This person finally rejects the false idea and resonates with the spiritual truth of themselves, right? Yeah, they begin affirming that every day, several times a day, whatever. Somebody calls out of the blue, or they have a coffee date, or somebody comes into their life, or they walk around the corner and they meet somebody. We know this is the way it works, doesn't it? Do I have agreement? That's the way it works? Oh, thank God. Okay, that's the way it works. That is the way it works. Sending and receiving. We are sending and receiving all the time. And if we're sending out negativity, if we're sending out loneliness, if we're sending out, I can never get a break. I can never catch a break, I remember when I was little, if we ever broke anything in the house, my mother would always say, and that's why we can't have nice things, and it's like, whose mother used to say, okay, and that's why we can't have nice things. And up until that moment, I thought we did have nice things, and then all of a sudden it introduces a false belief, right? Oh God, maybe our stuff isn't nice, it's like, who knew, right? Who knew up until that point? These false beliefs, then, we can carry them around with us, and they are limiting our experience of life. We are resonating. We are in the aura, the atmosphere of our most predominant thoughts all the time. We are sending out those messages all the time. Either they're spiritual truths or they're limiting false beliefs. And it's not until we awaken to them and we change our thinking can we then change our life. Because you see that what happens is it changes that aura that is around us, and that like attracts like thing. Now we're resonating at a higher level of frequency, right? We tuned into a different station that says what? I am loved, loving, and lovable. And we start experiencing that in the world. Ernest Holmes said this in Observations. He said, but how to make practical use of this divine wisdom? It's not enough to say that God is all there is. The statement is true before we said it. But if we wish to demonstrate the ability of this higher power in the human experience, we must say, God is all the life there is, and we must add, and that life is my life right now. God is good, that goodness is mine. God is substance, that substance is my supply now. The divine thing within us, that creative energy and infinite intelligence which functions through us, which is God, the living Spirit Almighty, must be directed in our lives. We must link our thought with the thought of the infinite. And isn't that really where we when we stumble, or if we stumble, isn't that where it is? We still have this old, or maybe some part of us, I should say, some part of us may still hold this old idea of, God's up there and out there someplace, and we're just a human. And I think that's sometime where the breakdown happens, if it happens, is this idea, this false belief of separation. And we have to get over it. Stop thinking that stuff. Stop, we have to get over that. Emma Curtis Hopkins said, not only must we link our thought with the thought of the infinite, we must glow in the truth. We must feel it. It is a thing of feeling. The universe is Ernest Holmes said, it's not just a cold and impersonal law. It is more than that. It is a thing of feeling. We must resonate with it. We must commune with it. We must fall in love with the divine, with the beloved in our lives, and align with it. Align with it. We must come to believe the truth of our own spiritual nature. That, it's out there, it's all over, but it is also here. It is also within us. We are a thinking center in universal intelligence. We are part of the wisdom of the universe. And as much as we can believe and embody, that is what we get to demonstrate. You might have heard that quote from the Buddha that says, we are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. It's all over the place. You see it on the internet. You see it on Facebook all the time. Well, it's a great quote, except the Buddha didn't say that. He never did. But that stuff that goes around Facebook. There's all sorts of things, Anyway. That's not true. Okay. But clearly what it is, it was probably meant to be verse 2 of the Dhammapada, which says, the actual text says, mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. That's the actual statement. And you'll notice he said mind. He didn't say thoughts. The quote is mind. Because mind, the true word in the statement, mind includes everything. It includes feelings. It includes emotions. It includes volition. It is all inclusive. It's not solely thought. Ernest Holmes spent tons of time talking about thought, and I know that. But Emma Curtis Hopkins said that gets you so far. And you must incorporate this feelingness, this love, this unconditional love that Spirit has for its creations. We are holistic beings, and the retraining our thoughts include all of it. Not just a mental training, although this is a mental training. There's another component to it, is there not, right? There is love. Spirit, soul, body, thoughts, feelings, emotions. All of it. All of it. So our powerful thoughts returned over and over and over with emotional tone, right? The feelingness of it, right? Will continue to outpicture until we change them. Until we change them. We have a limited thought. We replace it with a spiritual truth, but we feel it as well, right? We feel it as well. I was talking about Emile Coué before, right? The 10 knots on the bracelet. Every day in every way I'm better and better. Say that too. Every day in every way I am better and better. And what he said is, if the will and the emotion are in conflict, the emotions will win every single time. So that's why it's so important that we align with the allness of it, with the wholeness of it. So our powerful, powerful thoughts, backed by emotions, will return to us over and over and over again until we go in and we replace that belief with a truth. The power of our thought can and does change the trajectory of our lives. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, we must continue in faith until our whole mental life, both conscious and subjective, responds. If we would pray and prosper, we must believe that Spirit is both willing and able to provide the gift. Since Spirit can only give to us what we can take, and since taking is a mental act, we must train our mind to believe and accept. Believe and accept. So, excuse me. So this is our path. This is our spiritual path. This is this faith tradition. This is our science of mind and spirit. This is what it's based on. The power of our thought is without limit. It is limited only by our use of it. Thank you so much.